To reach satisfaction in all, desire satisfaction in nothing. To come to possess all, desire the possession of nothing. To arrive at being all, desire to be nothing. To come to the knowledge of all, desire the knowledge of nothing. Now, I don't want you to misunderstand that as a sort of esoteric, nihilistic philosophy. That was a quote from St. John of the Cross, a 16th century Spanish Catholic priest and mystic. You know, I'm not going to lie, St. John of the Cross's works are pretty hardcore. So if you're an all or nothing kind of person like I am, I think you'll find his work very interesting. Now, he wrote his works specifically for his fellow friars and nuns within his order of Carmelites to help them reach the summit of the spiritual life. So it might seem quite intimidating for the ordinary layperson, but there's actually a lot that even an ordinary layperson can imitate from his writings. His summation of the spiritual life is so accurate. I mean, if you just read it, you'd be like, whoa, that's exactly what I've gone through. St. John of the Cross lays out a framework of the stages of every person's spiritual life. You know, everyone has that first conversion, and they go through that honeymoon phase, the consolations, the good feelings during prayer. He explains how God eventually withdraws from the soul to train it on solid food, as opposed to the sweet milk of consolations. To teach the soul to stand up by itself, to not be attached to the good feelings and consolations prayer brings. It leaves the soul in dryness and aridity, almost sort of a desert experience. St. John of the Cross writes, "The road and ascent to God then necessarily demands a habitual effort to renounce and mortify the appetites. The sooner this mortification is achieved, the sooner the soul reaches the top. But until the appetites are eliminated, a person will not arrive, no matter how much virtue he practices. For he will fail to acquire perfect virtue, which lies in keeping the soul empty, naked, and purified of every appetite." Now, he's specifically talking about voluntary appetites, not natural appetites. It would be impossible to completely mortify your natural appetites completely in this life, and they don't pose a hindrance to attaining divine union, provided you don't indulge in them. St. John of the Cross describes this mortification of the appetites as the night of sense, and there's two parts to this night of sense. One is the active, which is us mortifying our senses and our appetites. This then leads to the passive night of sense, where the individual does nothing because God takes over and completes the work in the soul. If you feel like your spiritual life has been stagnant, dry, or if you're backsliding, maybe God wants you to strive for more. Maybe He's calling you to a higher state of union with Him, and mortifying your five senses, your appetites, may be the key to make progress again. So practically, what would that look like? As I'm sure you all know, the modern lifestyle has placed our senses under unprecedented assault. So maybe stop the doom scrolling, stop listening to music, stop chasing the most tasty foods, the most comfortable clothing, maybe start sleeping on the ground like St. Anthony. St. John of the Cross also gives us practical examples. If you're offered the satisfaction of hearing things that have no relation to the service or glory of God, do not desire this pleasure, or the hearing of these things. When you have an opportunity for the gratification of looking upon objects that will not help you come any closer to God, do not desire this gratification or sight. And so on with all the senses, insofar as you can duly avoid this pleasure. By this method you should endeavour then to leave the senses as though in darkness, mortified, and empty of pleasure. With such vigilance, you will gain a great deal in a short time. And you know, there's nothing wrong with any of these things in and of themselves, but our habitual attachments to these appetites are the problem. I personally have always felt a desire to enter the dark night of sense and to completely mortify all my appetites. But I've put it off for years, and I've numbed myself with the delights of this world. And sometimes God will humble you and let you stumble to give you a nudge back onto the path you've been avoiding. I made this video because it was something that really helped me, but I'm aware that this may be way too hardcore for most people. Let me know if this video was of any help to you, and I'll make more of this kind of content. So yeah, thanks for watching. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.